I'm being forced to marry someone I don't even know, while I have to watch the love of my life have a heartbreak. So you know what I decide to do? I come up with a plan. A plan that's going to undermine my entire crooked family's plan. And here it comes. I do not know whether to feel anger or try to fix things with my family. I wish I could turn back time and not know all this, because my whole life as I know it's a lie. My mom argues that it was necessary, and without that sacrifice, we would not have all the things that we have. Like that's supposed to make what they did okay. I'm hurting at the moment. They say they are too, but it's not for the same reason as I am. They're hurt because I've embarrassed them and put them in a massive financial issue. I'm hurt because they've broken my heart. When I introduced my boyfriend to my family, I was nervous because of the cultural difference. But I reassured myself that my cousin Rosie was once in an interracial marriage, and people eventually accepted her. It was already hard when we announced our relationship to his family. They were nice enough, I guess, but I could tell that they were not that comfortable around me. They did say some stuff like asking how my English was so good when I came from an African family, along with some rather intrusive questions, but I do not think it was coming from a place of malice. But after those initial hiccups in the relationship, we got comfortable around each other, and soon I was at regular family events. His mom absolutely loved when I cooked our cultural food for them, and would get so mad at him if he did not bring me over at least once a week. After getting acceptance from his parents, we decided that once I got home from college, we could go and tell my family about our relationship and hope for acceptance as his family accepted me. I was so nervous because I've never introduced a guy to my family. They knew about my past boyfriends, but never met any of them formally. But I was sure about this man. He made me happy, and I felt that we had a future together. I told my parents that I was coming over with a guest, but skimped out on the details of who this person was. I said it was a friend from college who was going to be staying in town for a while, so I thought it would be cool for him to have dinner with my family. My grandmother was more happy to have a guest over than anyone else. She loves when we have people over. When we arrived, they were very friendly towards him, asking him about his life in England, where he used to live up until 5 years ago. Everyone liked him, and we were all laughing, having a fun time by the end of the night, but that was before I told them who he was. I decided to break the news over dessert. I felt queasy, scared as hell that they would not want me to be in a relationship with him. Most of this was just me thinking of the worst case scenarios in my head, but you know what they say about manifesting. But I got the guts and told them this. Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. Troy is not just a friend. He's my boyfriend of a year. Guys, complete silence. You could have heard a pin drop from a mile away. They had all the neutral expressions on their face except my sister, who gave me a very supportive look. She already knew about us and promised to have my back. She's the only member of my family that I'm still talking to these days, but they do not even know, otherwise she'll suffer the same fate as me. They were all very nice to him, acting like they did not have a problem with the fact that I was in a relationship with him. I let my guard down and did not see the warning signs that were less than pleased about this situation. It was only once he left that my mom called me aside and told me to tell Troy that I cannot be in a relationship with him. I was shocked and felt my heart break when I realized that my family had just given me false hope. I felt cheated, wondering why they could suddenly be like this. They never seemed to have a problem with people of other races before. This was hypocritical of them to do to me. My mom gave me a silly excuse that I was still 20 years old and I needed to focus on college, and not being in a relationship with a man from a different culture was just going to lead to problems for me. She told me that we needed to keep the family name strong. Her words sounded wrong on so many levels. I could have expected all this from anyone else. My extended family are strangers, but not her. I begged her to not do this to me because I was simply happy. But she told me that my father and grandmother were not happy with my choice. They told me that if I did not break up with him, they would stop paying my tuition. That was low, and they knew that they had me when they wanted me. I was so depressed over the whole issue. The one time I found a man who made me happy, I had to give him up. It wasn't fair. I tried to argue that my cousin married and had a child with a man of a different race, but my grandmother told me of the marital problems that they had and blamed them on cultural differences. My grandmother questioned if it was the wrong choice to raise me here. She felt that I should have been sent back to the home country when I was much younger, because all I knew now was to look for college men. Having her attack my character like that broke me. She told me she was very disappointed in me because I felt I knew better than them, and I was embarrassing the family by doing this. They threatened to cut me off completely, stop paying for my college and apartment, take away my car, and kick me out. I was at their mercy. There was nothing that I could do about it but accept the decisions they've made. So I made the difficult choice to break up with him. I met up with him the next day. They had my mother come with me to make sure that I went through with it and did not back down. So I broke his heart and told him that I needed to focus on school and that our relationship was a distraction. After that, my mother took me away and we drove back home. As soon as I got home, my grandmother and father were told it was done, and they were happy about it. They even celebrated. Then I went to my room and called him to let him know, "Baby, our plans worked." Did they seriously think that I was going to dump my boyfriend because they threatened to cut me off? I was made of tougher stuff than that. Growing up in a family was always different from my other friends' households. Even though we were an otherwise modern family, with a family company and were better off, there was still a thing where I could not do certain stuff without their permission. For years, I was restricted and built up as I grew older. I gave up a lot of stuff for them because it went against our culture. But this was a step too far. I was going to deal with it at a later stage, but what I was not going to do was give him up. So, how did we manage to hide our relationship for 3 more years? Well, it helped that our college was in a different state. I blocked all my family members on social media and made my accounts private. Otherwise, we were freely to open date. Before we knew it, we've been together for over 3 years, and so the question of where we were going next came up. I was scared. I had a feeling that we would either have to make the ultimate commitment or break up, because now we were both working and having more conversations about what we wanted our future life to be like. When he proposed, I already felt like I was a part of his family. We were also living together. I was sure I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him, but now there's no avoiding it. I had to tell my parents. I hated that I was lying to them for such a long time. I was sure if they saw how serious we were about each other, they would finally accept him. I was counting on that because I really wanted my father to walk me down the aisle. I wanted to have all the family traditions to be done for me and when I had kids. I wanted my grandmother to be able to play with them. Family is oh so important to me, and being without it feels so empty, but I've learned to live with it. For what they did to me is something you do not do to people that you love. I kept on postponing when Troy wanted to go see my parents. I remembered the words my mother said. I imagined how my grandmother would react. So I made excuses after excuses until there were only 2 weeks to go, and we were going to get married. We decided to apply for our marriage license and then go and see my parents and give them time to prepare for the wedding. I knew it was not going to be easy and that they would not be very happy, but I could not keep living for them. I was not going to leave the man I loved because of them. Already, they wanted me to come work at the family's company, knowing that I'm not suited for that role. It led to a minor argument where my mom said something weird. She said that one day I would have to take over from my dad, and my husband would also need to make a smooth transition into the company if I was already there. I felt it was weird. As far as I knew, they already knew who they wanted to head the company. A cousin I've only met several times, his name was Andrew. and at the moment he was back in our country. I had no problems with it. In fact, I preferred it to be him who ran the company because I was not really into the merchant business. So we applied for our marriage license, but 2 days later, we were called in about a complication. I swear, my heart stopped when they told us it was illegal for me to get married because I was already married. I couldn't help but laugh, thinking it was a prank organized by Troy, but I was told that if I got married without divorcing my current husband, I would be charged with bigamy. All I keep saying was, no, you've made a mistake. There has to be a mistake. We have less than a week and a half to this wedding. Fix this. I was mad, thinking it was negligence by them because I did not remember getting married, ever. Like a fool, I sat there and argued with her until she told me that we had to leave. She could not keep explaining the same thing over and over to me again. But before leaving, I asked the name of this man I was apparently married to. And to my surprise, they said it was my distant cousin Andrew, which is gross. Troy was just as confused as me, but at least he believes me when I told him I knew nothing about this. However, due to this situation, we had to move up our visit to my parents because if anyone knew anything, it was them. I decided to go ask for answers on my own, tell them that I wanted to get married and hopefully get answers. There was no one else who could help me at this point but them. I just arrived unannounced, finding my mom, sister, and grandma home. They were pleased to see me, but I was less than pleased asking them why the heck I was married and showing them the document. My mom and grandmother were not shocked at all by this situation. Instead, they looked at each other knowingly. My grandmother told me, "Honey, sit down and calm down. We would explain everything." They asked how I knew about it, asked if it was my aunt who snitched. So wait, everyone except me knew about this? It was a different level of messed up, I'm telling you. I told them that no, I was trying to get my marriage license, but I was unable to complete the task. They asked why I would do such a thing and who I was getting married to. When I said Troy, I was not ready for the slap my mother gave me across my face. They shouted at me, not allowing me to explain the situation while I just stood there and took it. They told me that I was going to ruin everything and that I was so stupid. If Andrew's parents found out about this, they would cut all ties with our family. I demanded they quit running me in circles. All I wanted to know was why I was married to my freaking cousin. My grandmother told me it's a long story, but we could not avoid it any longer. I had to know. Turns out that way before I was born, my grandparents moved here. They were struggling with running their business. It was based in our country, but they were trying to move everything here. They did not have enough capital and were about to lose everything. They could not apply for a loan as well, so they asked a family friend for help. It was a lot of money that they would have to repay over a very long time, but their friend gave them an option. For years, betrothing has happened in our culture, sometimes to unite powerful families or in some cases to pay a debt. He asked that if the child my mother was carrying was a girl, then she would be married to his son. Well, as luck would have it, the girl my mother was carrying was me. They introduced me to Andrew as my cousin before they could break the news to me, but they said he was a very distant cousin that I barely shared any blood with. When I came home with Troy, they were afraid that things would get serious and I would get married to him, so they tricked me into signing the papers without knowing it, and I got married to Andrew when I was 21. Not only that, but they needed me to go and officially stay with them by the end of the deal, because the other clause was that I had to bear their heir. I felt sick to my stomach, realizing that I've been nothing but a lamb for slaughter. That all we had was due to a deal with the devil that my grandmother made. I felt I was dreaming and hoped to come out of it, but my parents told me that I've been stupid to continue seeing Troy while I was married, so now they had a fast track for me going to see my husband. I just became overjoyed with anger, hurt, betrayal, nausea. It had been such a hectic few days, stressing about the marriage license while still trying to plan a wedding, and now this? As the room started spinning, I realized that I had not properly eaten in days. A lot of things went through my mind as I was so stressed. Everything started getting blurry as they gave me more details about a marriage I did not consent to. And before I knew it, I was out cold. What kind of person decides someone else's fate before they are even born, all for the sake of money? And this was a woman who valued honesty above all else, she says? I didn't know she was such a hypocrite. Okay, guys, I have great news. So there's going to be a part 2 to this story. It's probably going to come out either tomorrow or the next day. It's going to be titled Part 2, and it'll have the link to this video in the description. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss this Part 2. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, things get insane between OP and her family. I couldn't even believe OP had to put up with this and come up with a plan just to go and hang out with her boyfriend and not have to marry some stranger. Let me know your thoughts of part 1, guys. Like I said, part 2 is coming out in a few days, so look out for that. The next story we're going to look at is titled, My Ex-Colleague's Entitled Wife Cost Him His Job, and, well, their marriage as well. Alright, so here's a backstory. My former colleague has had trouble keeping up at work, often missed his projects, deadlines, collaborations between mine and his team, because he refused to stay back. Wife did not like him to do so and had more than once showed up, unceremoniously, at our workplace, hurling insults and screaming for her husband to come home ASAP, to deliver an urgent project. Also for context, this isn't a common thing for us, only happens when a project's due delivery and the company compensates overtime and meal allowances for us. During company's dinner, she sarcastically says to me, "Oh, you're the other woman who's always on someone's husband's business." Just because a few weeks before that, I insisted for him to stay back and finish his part of the project, after his team leader did not manage to do so and asked for my help. I shut her down as politely as I could and told him whatever relationship issues he has with her, he should not be any of my problem. So I made a complaint to HR. Apparently, this isn't the first complaint about this incompetence. Due to problems with his wife, of course. HR is at their absolute limit this time. We are already year-end appraisal. I know it's weird, but it just so happens for this company. They do it in November and we get our bonuses by the end of December. HR has been gathering not just his team, but also pretty much the entire company about his performance. While this is not a conglomerate, it's still a pretty solid 300 plus staff. HR also tracks all his involvements in every project we had this year to see if they've caused any blockage that led us to bleed money. Suffice to say, it's not looking very good for him. Due to this, he's caused 2 late deliveries and 1 client's refusal to renew a contract. The blockage from his side has also led to a higher turnover rate for his teams. 3 junior engineers left because they can't stand his work ethic, as they were the ones who had to pick up his slack. So yeah, he was asked to leave. Well, the story's not over yet. The next week, the wife shows up at work causing a ruckus, yelling and screaming who made her husband lose his job. She ran straight to the discussion room I was in, barged through and starts calling me colorful array of insults. Not only that, she tried to tackle me, but security tackled her first, LMAO. She destroyed a few office furnitures during her rampage and slammed one of our interns' laptop on the floor. When they tell you no wrath like a woman's anger, well, this is the description for it. Police were called and she was locked up in the slammer. What I heard from other teammates is that the wife's super jealous type and has been controlling his money as well. So when he broke the news, she pretty much got enraged and they're not going to be able to sustain their lavish little lifestyle. By the way, wife's a stay-at-home. Lucky thing is they have no children. So now my ex-colleague went from just losing his job to being faced with charges of property destruction, possibly also looking at instant termination. Because, well, he was there all along when his wife was yelling at everyone at the office. He was the one who gave her the access card and let her in. Yesterday, a colleague told me he moved out of his marital home and's filing a divorce from the wife. I guess years of encouraging his wife's entitled, controlling behavior is finally biting him in the arse. Okay, so here's a back and forth. Let me know what you think of these comments. Yeah, he was in a domestic abuse situation. Sadly, guys don't get as much compassion as women. It's extremely difficult to figure out until it's too late. And that's when the comment replied to this. I agree. The wife is absolutely a vile human being, if she can be called a human at all. Well, we do hope he fares better now that he's filed for divorce, but I understand the company's point of not having him as an employee anymore. So guys, let me know, do you agree with the company firing him, yes or no, even though it was mainly his wife who caused all the issues? However, he was responsible for giving her the access card, so you can't forget that little piece. I think that's where he tied himself in a knot. Alright guys, that's all the stories today. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that part 2 coming out. Consider subscribing at least if you enjoy it. And I'll see you in the next one, guys. Take it easy.